I'm Greta Eagan, and you're watching Fashion Me Green TV, the place for style and sustainability without sacrifice. And today I have a very special guest, Fern Olivia. Fern, thank you so much for being here. So Fern is a holistic health practitioner and the creator of Thyroid Yoga. She is also the founder of Ajay, great, thank you. Ajay Beauty, a line of organic plant medicine. I'm super excited for you to tell us more about that. And she leads retreats around the world. She contributes regularly to online sites like Mind Body Green, and she lives in LA without a car, which just like baffles me. How is that possible?
I have a bike.
Oh, there you go. Very green of you.
Very green of me, yes.
Well, Fern, thank you again for being here today. You are such an inspiration, how you live your life, what you're doing with your life, what you're doing with your energy and your purpose. It's why I invited you on today. So I think what I'd love to do is just start with what is Thyroid Yoga? How do you explain it, and how did it come about?
Awesome, yeah. So thank you for that beautiful introduction. I'm so happy to be here. And Thyroid Yoga is my modality that I created. It's a method of yoga that it interweaves different practices of Ayurveda, functional medicine, Kundalini yoga, meditation, breath work, Chinese medicine. There's just so many different principles and methods that I use to heal my own body when I was struggling with the autoimmune condition that I have, Hashimotos, hypothyroidism.
Okay, so let's back up there. Let's explain that, because some of my viewers may not know. So what is Hashimoto's?
Okay, so Hashimoto's is underactive thyroid, and it's when the immune system is so weak that it starts to attack the thyroid, thinking it's an invader. So from there you have a host of autoimmune conditions, from weight gain to poor metabolism to poor digestion, to always getting sick all the time, to joint pain, to just feeling miserable in your body all the time.
And so you had these symptoms.
Had these symptoms.
What were your top three symptoms
symptoms
that you were dealing with?
Really poor metabolism and weight gain that no matter how hard I tried, it just would not budge. I would work out, I would run races, I would be doing spinning in boot camp, and nothing was working. And eating a clean plant-based diet, and nothing was working. I'm getting sick all the time, so I would constantly feel like I had the flu, regardless of how I tried to stay healthy. In college, I was always at the health center, and they were giving me antibiotics, which made my life so much more difficult because then it wrecked my digestive system. And then other things like just inflammation. The whole body would just be puffy and bloated and tired, and feeling like I couldn't get out of bed. Like I would just wake up in the morning and want to just roll over onto the floor, and I would have to take a cab to work. I worked in finance, and I would work 14-hour days, and I would just sit there at my desk having vertigo, feeling puffy, just feeling really miserable and depressed.
And so how many people do you think might be experiencing this and not even knowing that they have it?
So many people. It affects over 200 million people in the world have some sort of thyroid imbalance. And the thyroid is the major control center of the body. So the gland is tiny. It's right at the base of the throat. It's responsible for everything from weight, metabolism, immunity, digestion. So if you have any of those symptoms of anything going on in the body that's not in balance, it's the thyroid, because the thyroid maintains the balance. And it's a hormone. The thyroid produces hormones. So when a lot of women have things like fertility issues, trouble conceiving, PCOS, lack of a period, a lot of the times the thyroid is one of the reasons that that's happening.
So what was your journey? How did you discover that you had this Hashimoto's, and then what was your path, and then how did it lead you to developing Thyroid Yoga?
Yeah, so I did not know what to do. I was going from doctor to doctor, and no one was giving me a clear answer. They were like, your tests are fine, you're fine. I'm like, well, how does one wake up in the morning, feel this bad, and be fine? I didn't accept that as truth, because I felt so miserable, and I was constantly taking Excedrin, Zyrtec for the allergies that I thought I had. I was always on antibiotics. I was constantly popping pills, and I was like, this can't be right. A normal person shouldn't constantly have to take Pepto after every meal because you're throwing up. Like that's not normal. And I would go to doctors, and they were like, oh, let's do all these different procedures to find out what was going on with me. And at the end, I just had enough, and I said, I'm spending thousands of dollars every month on these doctors that would spend 15 minutes with me and want to do more tests, but no one giving me a clear explanation. And I studied biomedical engineering in college.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So
that came in handy.
I came in handy. So I'm a researcher. So I said, you know what? I'm smart enough. I can figure this out. And where I found the answers were in a very unlikely place. It happened in yoga. So on a whim, I took a yoga class on a lunch break, and I was on my yoga mat, and the teacher put her hand on my lower back, and this was the first time I felt loved and safe. And it was from there where I started becoming really intuitive in my own practice of, what my body needed, how I was moving on my yoga mat, how I was able to, if I felt really tight and stiff, I was like, well, what did I eat the day before? Starting to put pieces together where before it was more like just Band-Aids were being put on with the pills. This was allowing me to become my own alchemist and my own healer, which was really exciting to me.
Yeah, it sounds like it was just a whole new level of awareness that, sometimes we sort of move through life in a mindless state, eating whatever, doing whatever, pushing through, we didn't get enough sleep, but to really look at, what the impact has on how you feel the next day or how you feel in a few hours even, that's really interesting that you sort of tuned into that.
Absolutely. It was something where I got out of the zombie-like mentality, because so often, like you said, we're sleepwalking through life. And it was moving away from that into a space of really being conscious about all the choices, who I was hanging out with and how that was affecting me, what relationships were draining and what ones were invigorating. And from there, I began to really, really explore how I could heal myself in an accelerated way, and in a way that was all guided by my intuition. And from there, I realized I needed to share this with everyone around me. I couldn't see people struggling and hurting, without this knowledge on how to heal their own bodies and to feel really good again.
So we've talked a little bit about, definitely about the thyroid condition that you have struggled with, and how it was linked to maybe you're not being able to speak up, and that it sort of has this other tie. What was that like for you? What's your sort of like personal motivation for finding a way to break through, and how did you feel maybe stagnated and like you were blocked?
So both in the work that I was doing and then also a relationship that I was in at the same time, the combination of the two, I wasn't speaking up and I wasn't feeling heard, and I didn't feel like I had enough confidence to ask for what I wanted and needed in the relationships. So for example, I was with a man who, emotionally, we weren't on the same page. And there were a lot of things said to me that were very hurtful and very, very, something that shouldn't be said to anyone ever. And I didn't express that was so hurtful to me. That the true feelings that I had, I would cry, and that was the only reaction that I had. So things would be very malicious and really, traumatic.
What's like an example of something that was sort of said between the two of you that was so hurtful?
Yeah, that's deep. That's a good question. That's a good one. There were things about my body. For example, I was really bloated at a time where my thyroid condition was at its worst. And this is hard to talk about because as a woman, it's hard. And there are things like, I didn't have my period for 2 years because I lost my period at the same time as well. And I was very, very thin. I had lost a lot of weight, and my belly was huge because I was just so bloated. I had all that inflammation. So it looked like I was pregnant, but I wasn't pregnant. And there were things that he had said about that were, I can't even repeat them because they would make, people go after him. And it's not something I want to do to throw him under the bus, but it was something that was so malicious and hurt me for so long that my body held on to not getting my period until I left the relationship.
Wow.
Because I left the relationship 2 weeks later, I got my period, and it was basically my body saying, that's not the man to be fertile with. Don't, I'm protecting you. My body was in protection mode. And the thyroid symptoms were so bad because it was my body saying, hey, speak. Like, I'm going to make you suffer until you listen to me and until you start taking care of yourself. And it wasn't until I left the job and the relationship around the same time. And when I left the job and I left the relationship, my body healed. And it was like this miracle. And I was talking about it to everyone, and some of my healers were just like, we knew that would happen. That's why we were encouraging you to leave this, And the mind and the body aren't just connected, they're one. And when we can understand that, and we know what situations aren't right for us. We know. We don't need to ask anyone. It's either a hell yes or a no. And if you're going through anything in your mind where I don't know if I should be with this person, you probably shouldn't. If you're having this in your mind, this like, sometimes there's a resistance to something because you're scared and it might be good for you and it might be new and fresh. Or it might be this resistance because internally you know that that's not the right person and that's not the right job for you, or you shouldn't be going to this place, whatever it is. Like, your gut knows. And when you listen to it, your body's like, oh, thank you. I don't have to like hold on anymore. So that, you know, I never expressed myself in those relationships and situations. And I constantly, even with my family, I would be taken advantage of, or, you know, said things to, and I was always like, whatever, I'm such a nice person, I'm not gonna step outside that because I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. And I did that at the expense of my own health. So when I started listening to myself and really speaking up, when I left the relationship, and at the end when I broke things off, I had to say, like, this is why, and this is how I felt, and this is how hurt I was. And he had no idea.
Wow.
He had no idea how much that had hurt me. And so it wasn't that he was this malicious person. It was that, okay, those things shouldn't have been said. And, you know, it could have been treated a little differently, a lot differently. But I could have said something, you know? So in a relationship, a lot of times we like to blame someone. And ultimately, how are we showing up?
Absolutely. So how did you find your voice? I mean, I feel like you say, it's not even just limited to a relationship that you have maybe with a partner you're sharing your life with, but even with family or friends or coworkers and business partners, having that sort of courage to say what you really feel. It's challenging. So what was it for you? I mean, I don't know if you can pinpoint it to anything, just to maybe sort of share the wisdom that you've gained.
Yes. So the thing is, it shows up in multiple places. So if it's showing up in a relationship with a lover, it's going to reciprocate in relationships with your friends and your family and your work. So it just comes up in different people, and they're all being mirrors of these own qualities that we have in ourselves and these own strengths or weaknesses that we have in our own abilities. So for me, I started finding my voice when I had to, was when I left that relationship. And then I started finding it everywhere else. I started leaving business partnerships. And that's some of the hardest things, like leaving people. Because I would feel so guilty, like, oh my gosh, I didn't speak up, so now I have to end this relationship. Because it was my own inability to speak for what I wanted. And I had to end a couple of really great business partnerships because I felt like I wasn't being authentic. And for a while I was just, you know, riding along the success of a partnership because I wanted to please someone. And it wasn't until I started expressing my own voice and being like, hey, this isn't what I wanted, and I'm sorry, and I didn't tell you that because I was, you know, afraid. But the more and more I started to do that, the more and more my body would heal, and the more and more I started doing the work I love to do, and I just felt good. And sometimes you have to do that faster. I learned that right away. Now I'm like, if something does not feel authentic, I say no, and I stick up for myself. Whereas before, I was just a pleaser, but I ultimately had to break hearts. And that's not fun. So now the paradigm has shifted. It's, what does Fern want to do? And from there, my friendships are more authentic. I meet amazing people and amazing partners in all aspects of life. And it's something that, you know, we all need to learn how to speak our truth, because then in the end, our relationships are going to be more solid. Our friendships will be more solid. The work we're doing in the world will be more successful. So there's a lot at stake here.
Yeah, and we were speaking earlier about it. And it just seems that we were saying it's like a muscle, you know, it's to speak up like that, to use that muscle. It may be something, it may be weak, we haven't used it in a while, and it sort of takes a little bit more courage or gumption to like actually say those words, but the more we do it, the stronger it gets, the easier it becomes, and then as you say, over time you just find you're living your life authentically.
Yes.
And it almost feels like it's proactive, right? So instead of like doing damage control and like coming out and saying, oh, that didn't work for me after the fact, it's like, no, I don't want to set this up this way because this doesn't work for me, but can we find a way that it works for both of us? Or do you know what I mean? Like, it's a bit more proactive, it feels like.
Right, especially when you're starting a new relationship, for example. I've learned that it pays so well when you just talk about what you want and what you see in the beginning. And then you don't let things escalate into later on into, okay, I didn't tell you this 2 months ago, but this is how I was feeling. When you can right away speak your truth assertively, but also with grace. I'm all about grace, right? So how do you show up as a powerful, successful person in this world with grace? And then you're not, you know, bitchy or whatever, you know, people like to say negative things about being assertive, but how do you do it in a way that's really graceful. So
that's a great word. That's a great way to describe it. I try to do
you
that
are.
too.
You're really good at it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're really good at it.
I really, really try because, and I'll even preface it that way. I'll say, okay, I don't know quite how to say this, so I'm going to try and do it as gracefully as I can. But here, and I try not to use the word but too.
Yeah.
I say, and this is how I'm feeling, or this is, this is my perception of this. Is this true, or am I making this up? Because, your mind sort of runs with things and makes up stories, and then all of a sudden you're so far away from the truth.
Yes, and it's so stressful on the body too. And there's words, like you said, like but, should, have to, like all of these words, is how can they all affecting your way to communicate and communicate effectively. And that's something I teach, and I'm doing a thyroid yoga teacher training program in November in Venice, and it's also available globally. And as much as we cover about the thyroid and the Western medicine and how to heal your thyroid through nutrition, we go into these more esoteric places like communication and speaking your truth and asking for what you want. And as healers and as teachers and as conscious members of this world, we really, it is a critical time on this planet to understand how to communicate and how to express your mission and your work and your voice in a very authentic and very powerful way.
Yeah, I love that. It does seem, it elevates life when you do that. I think that's the right word. It really does. It just brings everything up.
Yes, it really does.
You have started a line, organic beauty, clean beauty line called Ajay Alchemy. Tell us a little bit about that, how it came about, and how it's maybe a little bit different than the standard beauty line.
Absolutely. So Ajay means invincible. So there's a sound current. A sound current is a mantra. It's a chant. It's an ancient collection of words that when you sing it, it actually elevates your vibration and makes you more radiant and magnificent. And on my website, ajayalchemy.com, which we'll have, of course, in the bio so people know how to spell it, because it is a little confusing. Ajay means evoking radiance. And the whole chant, when you sing it, actually, as I said, makes your vibration lift. And so I infuse that into the products that I create. So I chant this mantra, and I use all organic essential oils. I charge it up with a big crystal and sage, and I really invoke a lot of love and attention to these products that I'm creating. Fragrances, sun protection, hair radiance oil, face oil. I really put a lot of heart into what I'm making, and I use the best ingredients that I've been able to find, and using products that are only good for you and the earth. So nothing chemical, no parabens, no sulfates. And then I have a recycling program. Everything is in glass bottles. So if you'd like the products and you want to be a repeat customer, what I do is I give a major discount on your next order, and you just send the bottle back and I sanitize it and refill it for you.
Awesome.
So I'm really into sustainability, and I contribute to different breast cancer organizations because I do a lot of empowerment work too, and helping people become more aware of, that there's a lot of endocrine disruptors in most of the mainstream products that we use. If you look at a label of something and you don't understand the ingredients, that's a chemical you're putting on your body.
Yeah.
Your skin's the largest organ, it picks up about 90% of what you put on it and soaks that directly into your bloodstream. So if you want endocrine disruptors in your body, keep using that crap. But if you really want to clean up the way you feel, take a really hard look at what's in your beauty cabinet, and even makeup, and there's so much that can be made on your own. And that's why I started this line of products, because I love making it, and I love infusing so much love into it that you can really feel. So if you're looking for something that's luxurious and also good for you, good for the environment, this is your product.
Yeah, what I love is the word that you keep using is infusing, and I feel like sometimes we have infused waters with lemon or strawberry and mint or whatever, but I feel like beauty products, that hasn't really been, such a trend, but it's a really important one. And like you're saying, there's energy in everything. And so if you're actually taking that intention and through crystal or through chanting, putting it into a product, then you really feel the effects of it.
Yes, you definitely feel the effects. Everyone that wears it is like, whoa, my life just changed. I just manifested this man in my life, or I just received this huge check out of nowhere. And it's because you're attracting, your vibration is elevating, so what you're attracting is matching that elevated vibration. So it's the law of attraction, and the energy that you put on yourself, the clothes you wear, makes you more magnificent. If you start putting that attention into your luxury and your your own royalty, you'll start attracting things on that vibration.
I love it. So simple law of attraction.
Simple law, yes.
So what is one sort of daily practice that you would recommend to my audience to do, something that they can do to sort of do self-care and starting their day off right? I'm sure you have many. And maybe there's like one that you can tease out and share with us.
Okay, so my favorite is applying essential oils to your body as an art of self-care, an act of self-care, and it's something that you can feel so special doing, and then it's a reminder throughout the day you're having this sensational experience using your sensory system of smelling yourself and feeling like, oh my goodness, I'm radiant, I'm graceful, I'm delicious, like I smell so good, and people will hug you and be like, whoa, you smell so amazing. So when you have that signature scent that's actually good for you too, and has, benefits for the environment as well, then you're really elevating yourself, and it's a reminder all day that you're luxurious and that you're worth it.
Wow, so this, it sounds like it really stemmed for you out of having that sort of, that scent that is telling you, I am worthy, I am beautiful. And was that a huge part of why you even created the line?
Exactly.
You wanted that reminder.
I wanted that reminder because I was looking at a lot of different fragrances, and everything that I was finding had so many things added to it. And I'm a very big advocate about how do we take care of our planet? How does everything interact together? And if I am such an advocate of, a healthy lifestyle, I couldn't be using things on my body, in my body, that wasn't acceptable, for the earth, and something that I wouldn't recommend to my clients. Mm-hmm. And I deal a lot with women that have had cancers and thyroid imbalances and fertility issues, so I would not want to be recommending to them any of these products. So I started making my own and feeling really good about what I was wearing and being able to share it with everyone around me. So let's do that.
Yeah,
actually.
I would love to get my little paws on this.
So this is my fragrance line, J, and so what I love about it too is that I put so much care into the bottles. They look, luxurious, and it feels really nice to take it out in the morning, and it says radiance or grace on it, and you can repeat the affirmation, I am radiant, or I am grace. Mm-hmm. And what I like to do is I draw the infinity sign on the throat chakra, and you can also do it on your heart chakra as well. Mm-hmm. And it's just this little act. You can do strokes here as well, and it's like a little massage. And sometimes, you can hit the chakra points as well. And sometimes lower back you can do as well. You can do your belly. And it's just a really nice way to, in the morning, to take care of yourself. And it's like, giving yourself this little massage in the morning first thing.
It smells so good.
Thank you. Yeah, here is good too. And the scent will last with you all day, which I love. So, you can really, yes. And then all day, you'll walk around and remember too that you're worth it, and that you have to uphold yourself with the highest integrity of luxury and care, because we do so much for the world. So self-care is bringing it back to you. So first thing in the morning, before Instagram, before checking emails, before caring what other people are up to, what are you up to? How are you taking care of you?
Yeah. Oh, I love that, because I feel like, especially with social media and all these outlets, we're just pushing everything out and not necessarily looking inside or making sure that we're taking care of ourselves inside. How do you, with social media, how do you balance your online and offline selves? Do you have some yogi tricks and tips?
Yes, I do. I go through a digital detox about every month. I take a trip where at least for 24 hours, sometimes I just did one for 10 days, and that was the best. So taking a detox where you're not even posting anything, but your phone is off. So your phone is off, you're not taking pictures. Like, one of the things that I love is enjoying a great meal. It doesn't always happen that often, but when I do, it's amazing. Enjoying a great meal, cooking it for myself, and making this gorgeous meal and not taking a photo of it. Because so often we're like, oh my gosh, this needs to be shared with the world. Before we sit down to eat it, we're taking photos of it to share with somebody else. And it's funny because that didn't happen years ago, but now we're so into sharing. And the thing too is I love social media because it's great. I've connected with so many amazing people, and I've made so many great friendships over social media that then come into real life. Mm-hmm. So it is great, but it comes to a point where how much are you really enjoying your life in the present moment, Or do you feel the need that you have to share it first? So in the morning, every day I go down to the beach and I don't bring my phone. I take a cold plunge and I sit and meditate. Or I go and watch the sunset and I don't bring my phone. And there's so many beautiful moments where I'm like, that would be a perfect picture. But I get to enjoy it for me. And so if you can do that at least for an hour or two every day, and at least work up to a 24-hour period where you don't have your phone at all, you're not taking photos, you're not on any Instagram, social media, dating apps, nothing. And you just let yourself be. Sometimes it can be really scary because you're like, oh, I wonder if I'm missing something, but then you just allow yourself to be present, and then so many beautiful things can come into your life, and synchronicity can happen, and it's really special.
Yeah, it's sort of like that quote, life is what happens when you're busy making plans. I feel like life is what happens when you're busy like posting about life.
Yes.
And if you're not aware of it, then you just, you sort of miss some of the beauty of it, really.
Yes, you miss the moments.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Fern, thank you so much for joining us and sharing all of your wisdom and your beautiful products. We are going to have all of Fern's information posted so you guys can see where to follow her on Instagram and where you can get some of her beautiful products and even learn about thyroid yoga and maybe attend a class or a retreat. So thank you again for being with us.
Thank you for having me. This has been wonderful. I'm excited to meet you all soon.
Thanks for joining us, guys. That's it for today. Please weigh in on the comments below. We'd love to keep the conversation going. And of course, you will be able to find both Fern and myself on Instagram and through Twitter. So tweet us and ask us about questions, and we'll just keep this conversation going. See you next time.